So I want to go into this a little bit more, bring together the threads that we've been talking about over the last month, including this whole underlying process or dynamic of throwing being a foundational piece of the swinging process. So from here, we'll go on inside for a little while. Well, now that you see what's up on the slide, you may be laughing, and I can see the LOL post coming, that Kim did a deeper dive than we expected, diving all the way back to the time man first walked erect, which scientists put at about 1.9 million years ago. You may have read a book about this approach in a book called Born to Run, which talked about how humans evolved to become the greatest long-distance runners in the animal kingdom to chase down game, which would become exhausted and overheated. So I call my perspective here born to throw, and also, once you understand the movement principles involved, born to swing. According to the evolutionary biologists like Daniel Lieberman of Harvard, once man began to walk erect, it freed his hands to evolve to throw rocks and spears better. Seems obvious. Throwing rocks and spears at high speed with great accuracy gave us an evolutionary advantage. And so we kept evolving our throwing DNA throughout our hunter-gatherer history, which represents 99.9% of human history. The result is that man became by far the best thrower in the animal kingdom. As you can see here, a great ape is 4 to 6 times stronger than a man, but can only throw wildly at a maximum speed of about 18 miles an hour. A much weaker man can throw 6 times as fast and throw accurately. Baseball pitchers, for example, can throw a strike from 60 feet away and throw it over 105 miles per hour. Why is that? The answer from the scientists about how the human body evolved into man being the greatest thrower in the animal kingdom revolve around 3 central changes to the human body. And I've made reference to these slightly in the past month, and I just wanted to highlight it again, maybe from a higher level perspective. So the first major change that made humans such great throwers is the shoulder complex being so elastic and relaxed compared to other animals. That means that in our coiling and winding that I've described in the kinetic chain, we can store enormous amounts of energy in this whole complex that we can use to deliver speed. The second major change that made man the superior thrower in the animal kingdom is this ability to wind and cock our arm, this sort of spiral staircase move that we have in throwing and swinging. Remember, we talked about this wax off kind of movement and a wax on sort of movement. This is all centrally located in the shoulder complex, where our shoulder joint is the fastest joint in our human body, capable of 7,200 revolutions per second, meaning that for a short time, of course, this interior part of our shoulder complex is going that fast. It then leads to great amount of speed and power in our throwing and in our swinging process. The third evolutionary change to the body happened in the waist area, where most animals don't have that much flexibility and space here in the waist area. Human beings do. And it seems counterintuitive, perhaps, that this could be a source of great power and speed, but it absolutely is. So as we describe the kinetic chain moving up from the ground, once we put power into the ground, and starts to come up in waves, as it reaches past the hips, from the lower body, and then passing into the upper body, well, it just doesn't pass there without a rotation of the waist area. So this is where we have the key separation of the upper body from the lower body, so that in all good swings and in all good throwing, there's a substantial separation of the upper torso, how much it rotates versus the hips. And the stretch across and against our hips as we turn back is one of the very most important power sources we have in swinging and throwing. So this relaxed, flexible waist, which basically can twist like a towel might twist in the middle and then suddenly untwist, just sends the energy up the chain that much faster. Which brings us back to the overall themes of throwing and swinging. And here we see a more complete timeline of our evolutionary history from this perspective. In 776 BC, the Greeks celebrated our sporting potential by inventing the Olympic Games. And in the first games, throwing skill, as in the discus and javelin events, were featured. Our throwing skills evolved into a whole host of swinging sports, including tennis, and in the 16th century, rackets were added to our sport. Here you can see the world's oldest tennis court in Scotland, dating back to the 16th century, a court still in use, by the way. And of course, we're going to have the 29th Olympic Games of the modern era in Paris this summer, where maybe, just maybe, Rafa Nadal will once again play in Roland Garros Stadium and compete for an Olympic gold medal in tennis, which would be his second gold medal, having won a gold medal at the 2008 Peking Olympic Games. And so we talked about how we want to throw this racket out on the circle. And we want to keep the head of the racket at the beginning, following the hand behind. We don't want the head to come out too soon. Once the head comes out too soon, we lose all of our energy and timing. We want this racket to be controlled by the pulling motion of the body. That's the governor of the timing and the rotation through the contact, not the arm. You know, arm alone, which is what happens when you use these other type of grips and you have an arm-centric swing. So a pulling motion, keeping the racket head behind as long as it can, and then as we make this turn, again, finally, to the contact, this is where we get 60% of the speed of the swing, right in here, right in here. And this has got to be released in a completely free-flowing manner in a 0.1 second. No time to manipulate, no time to, roll over and twist the racket face and all these other things. It's thrown on the edge right through into this beautiful windshield wiper finish.